to this. And I will turn it over to you. And you, at this point now, I am your clicker, so you just let me know what you want. So obviously today's title, I can start a little bit. Today's title is Superhero Mental Toughness Training, which is one of the reasons why we asked the question we asked, just to kind of get people to reflect and think about it. Obviously, our main speaker today will be Dr. Dean.
So Brent, if I'm going to back us up one slide already. Please.
I already am clicking ahead.
No, your timing was good. I just had a thought. For you who are watching this, this would be kind of an odd thought, but let's start grand and bold. If I said to you, you're defined by who you want to become and what you're willing to do to get there, to become that, like right now, like, I don't care. Some of you who are here are 18 years old and some of you who are here are closer to 80. It doesn't matter to me. It's like, who are you becoming? What's the thing that you're becoming? And then the key question that I would ask of you and that you're going to ask of your athletes or anybody, of your kids, of anybody who's with you, is what are you willing to do to get there? Because you know, any of us who've been through anything, whatever's coming is going to be hard. Whatever's coming is going to hit you in ways that are not your preferred ways. Most people, if I say just do this many push-ups or whatever, they'll just do it. But the things that test you are not going to be the things that you go, oh, I want to be tested like this. They'll come in odd ways and places. It's like, what are you willing to do? And are you willing to be someone who falls sometimes? Are you going to define yourself like, I fall sometimes and I go? What am I willing to go through to become the thing I say I'm going to become? Because the point of your being here today with us is to become something. And the point of the athletes who are working with you, for those of you who are coaches, is like you really got to get this, and I want to transform this for them. The point isn't to win as much as it's to become a winner. Like, what are those superheroes like? They don't win all the time, but they have qualities. They approach things a certain way. I want that for you. I want that for who you're working with. So here we are already, before I go to the next slide. Go ahead, Brent. That's us.
That's us. Dr. Dean is the sports psychologist, Team USA. He's worked with the training center for more than 20 years. He's certainly the person that I call anytime I have a question about something, whether it's personal or whether it's sport related or work related or anything. So he's always had a plethora of knowledge to help me guide those with those decisions and things that happen day to day.
Thank you, Brent. And, you know, I've introduced you a time or two. I'll say this. I've rarely done anything, any endeavor, and these webinars are new, where everything I've ever taught or learned about team has come into play more. And sometimes we call each other at absurd times of night, late last night, looking at our slides together, picking out superheroes. You're like the best teammate. And I know you have all kinds of other credentials, but I'm going to introduce you that way. I'm so appreciative of feeling like we're in this kayak together all the time. So
I appreciate that.
There's your introduction.
Moving on.
Moving on.
So
hey, you got to focus, and they'll say this and not tell you how to do it, or, you know, the key is visualization. And I want you to have some tools today where you can practice them like a lot and give them to your athletes too, for those of you who are coaches. And just a reminder, you know, we live in a world that has like hacks for everything. Like, oh, what's the hack to visualization? What's the hack to self-confidence? And I want us who are training together to come from the point of view that there's not even any hacks. We're not here to hack anything. We're here to be like real. And the real stuff is what lasts. It's going to take you through flipping everything. And so I'll have some suggestions and some keys to things and like that, but we're not hacking into anything. We're doing the thing, because this is transformation. And on point number 3, on our next webinar, we're going to really work on transformation of character. Like, people have asked sometimes, like, really, how do you shift this whole thing? Like, I've had this self-concept my whole life. And we'll do that more next time, but some this time too. So we're going to get some practical skills today, and then we're going to head into transformation as well. So, okay, Brent.
So some of the housekeeping stuff, if you guys have been with us before, you'll recognize a lot of this stuff. We will send out a link to the webinar afterwards. So if you missed it or you want to review back to something, you're welcome to watch that. But please just don't share that information. We will have it available for Vimeo on Vimeo for purchase later on. We're still working through that process from the first one. So if you have any questions, please ask them as we go along. If I can get the question in and it's really practical to that specific moment, we'll go ahead and answer it right then. If not, we'll have, usually we have 20 or 30 minutes at the end for questions. And then, of course, the other bullet point that's always with anything that he ever does is any of the individuals that he talks about or the stories he tells, he's had prior permission from those individuals to use that information to share it with you.
Thank you.
So,
all right.
Along. Now this is where the good stuff starts.
It starts with you unveiling. You know, it's funny, we think of superheroes and we think of great champions, and oftentimes we'll look up and it's like, they've got this thing and they're you. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to talk to people who've been in the best in the world, at least for a minute, at their thing, and they're you. And there was a writer named Sheldon Kopp, and he said, anytime you have a hero, you might be diminishing yourself in some way. And instead, what I want, it's sort of like the example that I gave in a previous webinar. If I could bite into a lemon and you know what that feels like and tastes like and you experience it, then that lemon is in you because you know what sour and citrus and all those experiences are. And as we look at these heroes, the bottom line I'll say that probably a lot, the bottom line is to be bigger than your circumstances. To say, I know what I am, I know what I came to do. Confidence is this habit of acting in an empowered way. Like, I'm confident. What does that mean? It means that I'll jump the hesitation gap and I'm going to do something. And I might win and I might not. That's not the point. The point is I'm bringing what I'm bringing, and what I am bringing is bigger than this room. I'm bigger than these television cameras, and I'm bigger than the crowds. I'm bigger than that it says the Olympics or the Pan Am Games or whatever it is. They're not steering me. I'm this thing with these qualities, and we're going to have you define what you are in a little bit. And you do that despite what seems to be overwhelming. You're facing this player, this competitor, this power failure, whatever it is. I'm more than that, and you're more than that, and that's the point. And really, the things that we're talking about here today, I want you to take them like, you can throw it out later if it doesn't feel true, but take it into your bloodstream. Like me, it's like, yeah, because you've been programmed a certain way. You came onto the planet with all this possibility, and then there was all these installments as people said, you're beautiful, or you're bright, or you're stupid, or you're smart, or you're clumsy, or, you know, you got a face made for radio, or whatever was said to you. And it went into the programming. And a lot of the thoughts you think aren't even true. And we have a chance to sort of take the controls and go, no, now it's mine. Let's see what I'm going to be, and what am I willing to do to be that thing. So thanks, Brent. Next one, please. So this is what I say, and it's not just me. You know, a lot of what I've gathered from a lot of wise people, and I've sort of assembled it. So I won't take credit for being the fountain of all of this. It's just, this is an assemblage. I like this picture of Jason. Some of you know Jason Couch. I can't say enough about what it's like to have a cup of coffee with him and talk about what it's like to win 3 different Tournament of Champions tournaments in a row. And the way he thought of things. And the thing that I appreciate about talking to Jason about his mental toughness is he can talk about his without me feeling like I don't have it too. There's nothing about his that takes away from anyone else's. It's just, I'm here and you'll do whatever you're going to do. And other people shrink from that, I think, around him. And I've seen this there's some other slides of some other champions some of you will recognize. But it's what we talked about. The circumstances don't determine what I am, what I'll do. I do. All right. And that's you. Brent, thanks. This guy was smart. He was one of Caesar's contemporaries, I believe. Same thing we're saying. I'm just giving it to you in some different language. Most people have something happen and they think, oh, this made me feel this way. They made me think this way. And they don't realize again, the programming that goes on that makes them think that their thoughts are true. And I'm going to give you a formula in just a little bit for being able to control that so that the power is here, not what's pressing on you. Brent? Lots of slides, so we're going to go fast through slides because we made a lot of them. And again, I know I'm hammering on this, but this is going to bifurcate today. It's going to go two ways. You watching right this moment, you're like, yeah, this is me too. I'm like Jason Couch. I'm like Spider-Man. Like I'm like that. Or no, those are people who are not like me. And for those of you who are coaches, you have to be this. You can't leave a big tip at a restaurant if you don't have money in your wallet. And if you don't believe that this transformational process is you, it's hard to convince your athletes of it. It has to be true. And I believe you know this. You know this. Heart of hearts. This is true. All right, Brent. There's a picture of Carolyn Doran Ballard. And in her best year, when she won 7 titles in 1 year, which is really a lot. In any sport and any athlete, like, let me get this right. I won 7 in 1 year. Something Carolyn did, and I do have permission to discuss this. She would go back in her mind's eye to aspects of her character and herself from her history, even as a little girl. And like, what qualities am I going to bring to this next moment? And it really didn't matter who else was there, what the circumstance was. And she developed a habit. You see bullet point number 1 of acting powerfully. And I was out on tour, at that time a lot with people. And there would be like 5 places on the TV show for the finals. And I remember other people saying, okay, well, this week there's 5 spots on TV. Carolyn will have one of them, and that leaves 4 for us. I was like, holy cow, like people are already moving aside and the thing hadn't even started. And her habit of thinking and acting powerfully was so contagious. She didn't just have the confidence of knowing I'm going to roll the ball well to this spot. Other people were just moving out of the way in the face of it. And it's what they do. You got to get this concept. It's like if you build a fire that's got enough heat and it's strong enough, other people sort of back up from that, even though they can build fires too. It's like, well, I've got sticks, I can build a fire, but whoa, I'm feeling this one. And when you're the one that's got that, and I've seen this a number of times, I can tell you some other things as we go. When you've got enough coming off of you, you're not here to squelch other people's fires. They're in charge of their fires, but they don't really build them quite as big when yours is rolling. And that's her. And I want these goals, if you look at these bullet points, I want you to jump the gap of hesitation, which is people who are also rans or people who are not effective or not confident. They come up to something, they hesitate, they start to think and analyze as we know. And people behave in a championship manner. It really is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, going. And they know when they hit 1, they're going. And they might fall and they might fly, but they're going on 1. And once you know that about yourself, you're in the business of building a reputation with you. It's the whole thing is, what's my reputation with me? I go when it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When it's 1, I go. All right. So this is what we're here to do. I'm jumping some slides, I guess, in my mind, but there you have it. All right. The point is to have control over your habits and how you think. And we really want to land this point, this moment. How you think, what you think you are, how you think you behave in different circumstances. These are habits. I've got on several slides. It says neurons that fire together, wire together. We're plowing streets about our tendencies for how we think. And I want to give you sort of command of the plow again. All right. So thanks, Brent. All right. Bottom line. None of you came onto the table, the birthing table, and just went, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed. Everybody's got clothes but me." You didn't reach for a diaper right away. You just looked around and there was no shame, there was no embarrassment. You were just a little being that was making sense of everything. And somewhere along the way, by age 3, you started learning things about trying and whether it was okay to fall down, and when you were going to use a sippy cup, and first time no lid on the thing, and now we got an open cup, and then you drop it because you did. Every one of you dropped your glass. Every one of you spilled like Kool-Aid or milk or something. And what happened right then? Did whoever was around you, and there's no one incident that was going to be so traumatic it mattered, but after 10,000 of people being sort of amused that you were using your little hands to try something, or someone screaming like, "Oh, there's their carpet. Now what are we going to do? The carpet's stained." You start learning about, is this okay to explore? Do I get to fall down? Do I get to spill my milk? Or do I have to strike every time? Do I have to fill every frame? The answer is no, because you can't, but how do you feel about it? And I want you to wrap your ego, like tune in right this second. Because so many people who are listening, and this has been me in my past when I choked and everything too, trust that. My ego was built around whether I meddled. And it wasn't built around my willingness to stumble and do the thing I love. Your ego should be built around, this is the thing I love. And the most important thing is I'm acquiring skills in the direction of it. On camera, off camera, on TV, not on TV. My ego's built around, I'll show up and I'll try and I'll fail and I'll choke and I'll grip the ball too tight sometimes. And so what? I'm somebody who plays. And too many people's ego, they're built around, did I win? It's like, no, I want your ego built around, did you behave like a superhero? Not did you win every time. So we take our hits sometimes, right? All right, go ahead, Brent, please. So this is what I said before. And there's data that supports this. Almost all of your thoughts you thought before, your reactions, we wake up and you have your habit patterns around, I do this, I make my coffee, I get my toothpaste and all this. And, so let's take it out further. You're out on the lanes or the field of play if you're here from another sport and somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to kick your butt." And most of us we're not even in charge of our reactions. Some of you would just laugh and go, "That's so funny when people do that." Some of you get mad, "I'm going to get him or her." And our reactions, we treat them like they're true. And we're just wired to respond a certain way. And we have no sense like, if we even look at this data, I have a 10% possibility of rewiring my brain. I don't have to have my feelings hurt every time. I don't have to be embarrassed every time, even if I miss on TV. I don't have to have anything. But you have to be willing to say, it's physics. I've got to bring more energy to this new wiring pattern than the easy energy that's already got me wired to react in a certain way. There's not a hack for this. This is effort. I'm going to think differently. I'm going to respond differently. I'm going to create my experience. Because all this, what you think you are right now listening, here, I'm a shy person, I'm an extrovert, I'm funny, I'm, whatever it is. Most of it's true because you think so. There isn't one personality characteristic that any of you have watching right now that if we sat down and worked together, we couldn't adjust more or less of. None. You're not in anything but what you make up and what automatically fires. Unless you have like real concerted effort, I'm changing this. And I promise you, you don't have a single thing that can't be adjusted. As much as I can promise anything. Brent, please. This fellow, the quote Joe Dispenza, he's become sort of popular out there, doing a lot of work so the things I'm talking about are not just theoretical. Dispenza's work, they're hooking people up to flipping electrodes on their brain and going, let's measure this. What parts of the brain are firing repetitively? And how much of what we think and react and the confidence is a habit based on memory. Oh, I've been here before. I always miss 10 pins on TV. Whatever it is. It's like, as if it's true. And as I mentioned at the previous webinar, with these little stimulus response machines, something happens. I throw a ball, I leave an 8-pin, and it's like, oh, some people would go, that's awesome, I can shoot those. Some people go, oh, I always get ripped off. I'm that kind of person. We have these habits of thought. And Viktor Frankl, the survivor of Auschwitz, this horrible situation, who somehow found meaning in being there and actually periodically had other positive experiences, hard to imagine. And he had a famous quote, and it's my favorite. I said it before, I'll say it again. He said, between stimulus and response, there's a gap. That there's a place and a space where you can create a new experience. You can become powerful. You can be effective. You can be like Carolyn. You could be all of a sudden like, I'm like that. And I want you to dial in here for this. If I say to you, do you have free will? Most of you want to, yeah, I have free will. It's like, yeah, I hope so. But the answer is, based on this data, most of us don't. That over 90% of what we do is just push button. And so if you imagine this, if there was a drop of water, just a little drop, and it was in a wave like an ocean wave, and that wave was going towards the shore, if we had some sort of computer beyond any math we have, but just imagine this, we could calculate what are the forces on this drop. The weight of the wave, the speed of the wave, the shape of the ocean floor, the atmosphere, the shape of the shore, like I say itself, just every factor on this wave, could we predict where this drop was going to land? And the answer is, yeah, if we had some sort of amazing supercomputer of the aliens or whatever, that we'd go, we know every factor pressing on this drop, it's going to land there. And if we look at it like that, you are the drop. And I go, okay, let me look at the factors playing on you. What's your gender? What's your culture? What were you told about your abilities? What's your history of making and missing shots? All these factors that have pressed on you. So we go, you don't even seem to have choice anymore. You think you're a certain thing, and these situations always press your buttons in a certain way, and you always get nervous in this way. And you were told whatever, and you're this birth order and this gender, and you're just going to act like this. And most people's behavior is so determined, you could follow them around for 3 tournaments and know how they're going to behave on every situation. And my suggestion is this, and there's data to support it. This is all habit. And we have the possibility of having a gap in there where we go, wait a minute, new page of paper. This is going to take some work. I'm going to interrupt my old habits, and I'm going to develop a new one. It's more empowered, more functional. I might be a drop of water in a wave, but I have consciousness and I have choice. And I'm choosing something. You tuned in here today because you want something different, to give away something different to the athletes you work with, or something different for yourself. So that's what we're up to. Brent, please. There we go. Just a reiteration. So there's your 10-pin in the corner. And if you're a great spare shooter, you look at that and you go, yes, 1 pin. It's not even a combination spare. I can make that. I know I've done so many of these. I know where to line up. I know what I roll over. I know my hand position. I know what ball I'm using. I'm up the back, or I'm using my plastic, or whatever it is. And then some people go, oh my God, it's never easy. I was watching the show, not long ago, and player leaves a 10-pin and he says out loud, it's never easy. And I thought, and that's your life, because that's your life. As opposed to I can make these, are awesome, or have this skill. It goes the other way. It's never easy. And now we have a whole new reality. There you go. Brent, please. All right, briefly, it goes through this, and any of you coaching know this. So Brent, next slide, please. You're going to do this with your players. And again, this is any sport. I've got primarily bowlers in the house here, but you're going to teach the skills, and there's going to be that acquisition and the initial application, and then the practice until there's automaticity. And then, the development of mastery to go, I could take these skills anywhere, any tournament, any job interview, any test. Here's what we're doing. We learn it. What's the old thing? If I hear it, I forget it. If I see it, I remember it. But if I do it, I understand it. If I hear it, I forget it. If I see it, I remember it. If I do it, I understand it. And true understanding says, I don't have to think about how to do it anymore. It's in me. Brent? All right. It's the question I asked in the beginning. There's nothing that you can't get better at. And there's nothing that you couldn't be like any of the people that we'll have in slides or anyone else that you admire. If you see it, it's in you. The question is just, there's a book called The Road Less Traveled, and Scott Peck wrote this. And the opening line of the book is, life is hard. And the weird thing is, or the paradox, is if you know that, it's actually not as hard. But if you think it's not supposed to be, then it's really hard. And if you become someone, if you define someone as somebody who moves no matter what you feel, and you do the thing, and you have your morning rituals, and you have mastery over all kinds of parts of your body and how you think, you're willing to do that, we'll take you anywhere you want to go. Really, anywhere you want to go. All right, Brent? All right, let's take a look at this. This is if you want to look at the base of the pyramid, I got to smile again. Brent has been going through slides to match our words here, and they're just delightful to me to see. If the first thing that you're responsible for is how you talk to yourself, and it probably is, as verbal as we are, we don't have to talk ourselves through everything. You don't have to tell yourself how to walk. But things around how you see situations, what you say about yourself, how your self-talk is directed. And there's several kinds of self-talk. There's instructional, like stay down at the line, keep your elbow in, things like that. But there's other self-talk that's self-defining, like here's how I am in this situation, or here's how I do, or here's how I'll handle it, or this is what I'm up to. That has such power. When you see the data that I'm going to show you, there's a couple of things that you will and won't do ever again. Brent, next slide, please. Just a little truism. You're going to be right. And if you want to diss yourself, if you want to lower yourself, nobody's going to get in your way. We've learned that. So we're going to be in the practice of something else. Next slide, please. All right. Talked about this. This is a bit of a repeat, and we have patterns. And I'm going to want you to take a look at your patterns briefly. I'll have a really short exercise later that has you have a chance to see some of your wiring. Brent, next slide. All right. So here's life. And this formula right here, this is going to serve you for about forever, roughly forever. And that is, sometimes what we'll do in a seminar, a little spoiler alert if you've not studied with us together at Kegel or some other place, and if you have, you'll recognize this, because I'll be walking around and I'll lecture, I'll have this bottle of water just like this, and I'll walk around doing the thing just like I am with you, and then I'll just stop and I'll just douse somebody with water right out of this bottle. I'll just squirt water right onto them, right in the middle of the seminar. And people, like someone alert, maybe someone was daydreaming, I go, oh, you missed that, and I'll just hit them again. So somebody's soaked now with water, and I'll freeze the moment and just go, what's going on this second? Thoughts and feelings, reactions. We'll go to the whiteboard and we'll start writing. And someone will go, oh, you're a bully, or you think just because you're the instructor you can do whatever you want, you're a boundary violator and you're mean. Someone else will go, that was funny. And someone will say, oh, that's creative. And someone will go, well, at least this isn't boring, or now we're out of the box, or whatever it is, or I'm scared, or I'm eager to see what's next. Like all of this gets listed. We'll list about a dozen things, like I say, funny, terrible, wouldn't want to date you, would really want to, whatever. And I just go, wait, okay, we got all this. Is this stuff true? And people are like, yeah, this is true. I said it. I say, no, is it true? Like, what's true? Nobody has said what's true. What is true? And then somebody will go, well, Kim is wet? I'm like, yeah, that's it. I threw water on Kim. She's wet. That's it. That's the truth. And people always, now think about this phrase, because people will have a response and they'll go, oh, this happened and it made me feel this. Or he said this and he made me think this. But if I could make you think, you would all think the same thing. Like if I threw water on Kim, you would all think the exact same thing. You would all think it was funny, or you would all think it was creative, or you would all think it's mean. But everyone had their own blender. And so she is wet is the only truth, and the rest of it is mine. So here, what do we have? A 210, it looks like from my screen. You leave this, and people go, well, you would have to think about it this way. And I'm thinking, what way would you have to think about it? You could think about it like, this is awesome. This is so challenging in terms of a spare. I'm free to just go for it. There certainly couldn't be any shame in missing it. Like, who makes these? They don't, all of you probably, but not that much. So I'm free to just roll, right? I got a shot. Or how cool would this be to go for this hard thing? Or I love this challenge. And other people are like, I hate this and I suck. And life always turns out this way for me. And all it is a 210. And the world of possibilities is open to you. And B, the way your automatic 90% wiring goes, your habitual thought is in play. And if it's an empowering one, like, yeah, I get to go for these wholeheartedly, wide open, I'm free now, keep it, because you're going to have feelings of confidence, joy, and exhilaration. But if your other part, I don't know if you can see my arrow, is fear, anxiety, or helplessness, it's like, I don't want to live with that. That's not the life I want. So I drop down to step D and I go, I'm changing this. And this is where the work is. I'm changing my thought pattern. And I'm not just sweet talking myself here. This isn't about selling yourself a used car and then convincing yourself it's new. What we're doing has to have a level of sincerity and authenticity. But the truth is, there are people that look at this and go, free to play. See what I got. And enjoy the moment. There really are. I'd like to think I am. Unless it's the 10th and I have to mark for it to win, but maybe I still am. I don't know. If you don't like the way you feel, you got to change the self-talk, the belief system, and then E, you drop down. If you're not experiencing empowerment or joy or fun, take a look at your thinking, especially if you're competing if you're in a tournament, the lights are on, why would you want anything other than empowerment? We're going to go into this. We know we don't carry every hit. We know stuff happens, and we know other people carry backup strikes and all kinds of stuff. I'm going to go in and say, what do I want to feel? I'm going to decide my future ahead of time. If you want to have a future that works for you, that's awesome and fun, create it. Otherwise, you're going to be like everyone else and wait for one to happen, and every now and then you get lucky. But I don't want your future dependent on that. Next one, please, Brent. All right. So here's the thing. We're all addicts, every one of us. What am I addicted to? And the answer is you're addicted to little dopamine hits in your body, in your brain, in the little synapses that fire and the neurotransmitter that goes in there. What do I want? Dopamine. Many drugs, street drugs, is what people take them. Like they get these dopamine hits. I'm not recommending that. What I'm recommending is that you design your experience in a way that you're getting dopamine hits all the time. If you have an orientation and a belief system that's empowering, and again, we're going to work on those skills today, you're going to get those hits all the time. You're going to be liking life. If you're generating negativity and hating yourself, you're going to have the opposite experience. And your experience is going to be miserable. Your sense of empowerment and your confidence is going to be certainly not what you'd want to sign up for. Brent, please. All right. So, as I said, yeah, the goal is to win. I'm a fan of gold medals. I've won and I've lost. Winning seems to be more fun. But the real goal is to say I operated in a way that's congruent with what I say I am and who I'm becoming, and the price I'm willing to pay to become that. And if your old self, and if that's working 5 stars, keep on keeping on. But we have some new things that are going to take some effort to rewire. So Brent, please. Here's the thing. If I gave us, if we're training together in the room right now with us in the room, I'd say, of all the things you could be, what are champions? And you'd start listing things. I'm courageous, I'm bold, I'm open, I'm worthy, I'm confident. I'm funny, maybe, I'm smart, honest, real, authentic, sincere, warrior-like, whatever they are. I just gave you a couple examples and I've just listed 10 off the top of my head. And if I said to you, like right now, again, dark alley, someone puts a knife to your ribs and says, what are you? And if you can say what you are, you live. How many of you have some things queued up that say, I'm this in a dark alley, I'm this when the lights come on in competition, I'm this is what I am when I'm alone. I'm open, I'm giving, I'm courageous, I'm bold. What is your best self? If you look at your heroes, maybe they're superheroes with multicolors, and maybe it's Rosa Parks, and maybe it's Nelson Mandela, and maybe it's your mom. Like, what's in them that you go, that's the thing. That's that part of Carolyn that's like me. That's that part of Jason that's like me. That's that part of Rosa Parks that's like me, whoever it is. And you go, this is my ideal. And later when we do visualization, it's like, what would it feel like to be that thing? And you have to know it. We call this your contract. And I know, Brent, we have a later slide on this, but I'll just get to it ahead of time, which is, what's your deal? What's your agreement? So you go, no matter what happens, win, lose, or draw, no matter what someone says, no matter how many people, how many television cameras, I'm going to be this thing. Kim Kearney's in the house. I think we talked about this before. When she was on tour, one of the places that she landed was, I'm gritty and I'm gutty. It's like, what does that feel like? Who is that? What's that woman look like at the line with the ball in her hand? What does her gaze look like? What does a gritty and gutty warrior woman athlete look like? How does she feel? And every sense in her body. And we'd make a deal like, is this your contract? This is my contract deal. Okay, I can watch every shot. I'll sit in this settee. From there, you'll come back and it'll be a head nod yes or a head shake no. Were you the thing you say you are? And if you are, you'll carry, well, oddly enough, I think we carry the back row more when we're clean and we're sincere and we're all in. And Carolyn had some things, I don't want to go too far into this. She had her own language for when I'm this pure self. It's like nothing else matters. And some of the other great ones playing right now also. Shannon O'Keefe has hers. Jason Belmonte has his. This is what I am when I'm my best self. And it's a contract, it's an agreement. You got to know yours. Make a list of all the possible qualities, or even dial in if you can just laser in, so that you can feel it bifurcates. It's binary. I am what I really am, or I'm my false self, the part that got programmed in. Your real self you were born with. I explore, I risk, I try. The world's amazing. This is cool, it's fun. Or you're that other self that got pasted on, which is I'm meek, I'm mild, I'm small, I'm clumsy. It's not you. The most powerful words it's said in the English language in your consciousness is whatever follows I am. And for most people, they're saying it 1,000 times a day and they don't even know it, whatever that is. And if it's positive, awesome. But I've seen too many people slap their legs, diss themselves, tell themselves I suck. And if you do, then you are. House rules. We're programming all the time. Brent? So you can read this, but to change your self-concept is risky business. It's saying, I'm going to go someplace that I've not been before. And it's a tough thing to leave first base and try to steal second. There's a stretch of exposure where you can be thrown out. And you're not going to do your new self perfectly, and you're not going to be elegant about it at times. And if you want to look at this other part, here's some data for you. Some of it came out of Georgetown, Christine Porath out of Georgetown. Is that negative thinking works. It's flipping powerful. We're designed evolutionarily to pick the parts of our environment that are flawed It kept us safe. Our brains still are those million-year-old brains. And so environmentally, externally, we'll find what's wrong because that's what keeps us safe and set. And we'll find internally what's wrong because it self-monitors. We're designed to have the negative be more powerful. I hate to say it. And so negative thoughts and self-talk 4 to 7 times more powerful in terms of steering your attitude, your mood, your behavior, your confidence than neutral positive thoughts. If you say a negative thing out loud, 10 to 70 times more powerful on your consciousness. So when you say, I stink, I can never do this, everyone else, when you're doing that, the programming is intense, you are weaker. Just think about if you, just the most basic thing, if you were weightlifting, you're in the gym trying bench press, and the person spotting is like, you got this, come on, we've been here before, I'm right here. And you find that extra 5 pounds. But if you had people around you going, you could never do this, you've never lifted 150 pounds before, what are you thinking? You'd be battling them, trying to go, I'll show you, and your consciousness is all in what they're thinking, and you're weaker. And the data's in on this too. Some of my favorite studies, I like to look at these obscure things, but they took these arm wrestlers and they measured them objectively for strength. And they tried this study, it's kind of mean actually, but cool. And they took 12 matches and they told the ones who were stronger, well, you're weaker than your opponent. I got to tell you, he's stronger than you. You give it your best shot, but come in with good attitude, but you're not as strong as them. But they really were the stronger one, and they told them they were weaker, and they told the weaker ones, you're stronger than your opponent. Like, good news for you, you draw a guy you're stronger than. And it was the reverse in reality, but they told them the reverse. And in 10 of the 12 matches, the weaker one conquered. They were the winner. And they took the same thing and they went into the gym, these researchers, and they put weights on the bar. And so if you had somebody who could bench press 200 pounds, what they did is they made weights and they put more on than the person knew. So they put like 210 or 215 pounds on, but they marked the weights incorrectly. So the person thought that it was a weight that they were lifting before. Like, come on, you've done 200, how many times? Let's go, 200 pounds. And really there's 210 or 220 on, but they didn't know it. But with the belief system, I got this and I can lift 200 pounds. They did it statistically way more than you would expect. But you take those weightlifters or those arm wrestlers and go, I'm weaker than him. I can't lift this much, now it's 220. If you're just thinking it, 4 to 7 times more powerful. If you say out loud, I can't do this, you flipping buried yourself. So here's to all my listeners, don't say stupid stuff out loud. How's that? Don't say harmful things out loud. Nobody will take it away from you. They'll let you have that self-concept, and you're crippling yourself. If you did that, if your self-talk was negative and it in your head or it's out loud, and I could somehow, every time you did that, like blood would spurt on your shirt somehow or on your leg, and you look around and you go, I'm bleeding, I'm losing blood. If you could literally see blood loss every time you did that, it would change your behavior fast, I hope. Well, and I'm telling you, your soul is losing blood. Don't say stupid stuff out loud. Sorry to say it like that. Please, next, Brent. All right. Just a little bit more weighing in. Spider-Man, who is a real person, said, with great power comes great responsibility, and your words are powerful. So, thank you, Brent. All right. So just in terms of technically how to do this, you have to refuse to accept any of the nonsense anymore, right? And I've just given you some examples on this slide of how to change it. So you don't go, well, I don't always miss these anymore, or any of that. You have to have, and again, this can't be selling a used car. This has to be like real. So you have to find things that you know to be true. The research on affirmation says if you do a positive affirmation, but in your heart of hearts you don't think it's true, you're actually worse off than if you never did them, because you're lying too. And I would ask you, Like I've just done a few out here. We can look at anyone's language, but I would ask you, can you do hard things? Can you? If you can, if you really can, this does make you special, because most people don't. They do the easiest thing. Garage door openers and, you know, my little car key that opens my car without me moving my thumb. They think that's a great invention. And I'm thinking, I live in a culture that thinks that pressing my thumb is too much work. Like, it's absurd. I don't have to reach in my pocket to open my car anymore. It just sends out a signal. Like, who invented this? Reaching in my pocket was too hard? I don't want that. I want to be one of the people that does hard things. And you take a look at these other things. Nothing is written. New moment in time, new moment in time, new moment in time. These are just 5, I think, quick and easy examples of what you can do with your language. And you've got to really look at your language. All right, Brent, please. So, well, transformational exercises. Let's have those. Brent? All right. So we're not going to set a timer for 5 minutes, but if you have a piece of paper, even now, I would give you 30 seconds. Most of you, while I've been talking, go, oh, yeah, I've done that, because I've done that. Seriously. Some of this is field tested and some of it's field tested in my own body. But I would have an athlete do this, and I would just say, what are your worst? What have you done? What do you say as you're slapping your leg? What do you say as you want to kick a ball return? What do you say when you've tried and failed, swung and missed? You write it down. It's like, I really say this. This is my worst. And don't be embarrassed about it. Like, this is my worst. We all got them, most of us. And then you do the opposite, which is, what's the truth of it? What am I really on my best day? And I'm going to stop saying this stuff to me because I'm programming myself all the time. And most of my programming didn't even start with me. I heard it somewhere. Think about all of you. You could think about this. I have a couple that come right to mind. If I say, what is something that someone said to you in this lifetime? And they probably don't even remember it. Something positive, or someone just said, oh, you know, what a beautiful spirit, you know, or whatever it was. And they don't, you just overheard them, or something that was said to you by somebody, and it stuck. But then I would ask the other question, what's something that somebody said to you and they don't remember it, but that also stuck and it was negative? I mean, when I was in middle school, it was a painful memory. I was messing up with a lot of things as kind of a troubled kid, frankly. And this is, some of you know, I have a history of gymnastics, and I wanted to start it. So I was in 8th grade, and I went to my mom to get the $3 for the equipment fee for the leotard or whatever thing, and this singlet that we had for gymnastics. She looked up and she goes, well, I suppose you'll quit this like everything else. And went back to like making a salad. And my mom doesn't remember that. And God bless my mom, and we were good and fixed things and everything's fine with us. But here I am remembering it 40 years later. I suppose you'll quit this like everything else. And it went in like, that's what I am. And I really had to work on being the other thing. And I think part of me wanted to prove to her to be the other thing, for better and for worse. But she doesn't remember that. All of you have something. Like, what did someone say that really was really something on the upside? And what did somebody say that was on the downside? That's in you, and you've been reprogramming yourself ever since. And if you just wait for things to activate your program, they will. So next, Brent, please. All right. So this practice is a practice, and amazing people will stay with these disciplines. There's nothing going to happen today that you go, one shot, had a webinar, good to go. Want to stay with these. Be amazing in your disciplines. Your results, as James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, good book, said, your results are a lagging sort of result of your habits. Your results are lagging results of your habits. The shape that you're in today isn't because you ate or didn't eat yesterday, worked out or didn't work out yesterday. The shape you're in today is because of what you've done for 6 months. the confidence that you have in competition is going to be the practice of these habits over a long time. Your results will be the lagging, like I say, the lagging evidence of your disciplines, your habits. And we're just setting up habits here. All right, next, please. So let's create our future, as Joe Dispenza says. And your body's like your physical mind. You teach it like this is what it's going to feel like. And if I said to you, well, how do you know, like from where you are right now, if they were open and we didn't have COVID and your bowling center or your other sports facility was open, I'd go, could you drive there right now? And you go, well, yeah. I'm like, well, why? Well, I've driven there a million times. I know how to drive a car. I know the route. I would just go there. I'm like, yeah. So you're confident in that? And you'd all say, I'm confident. I've been there so many times. Like, exactly. You have an empowered sort of sense for what you could do to go where you're going. When we do visualization, as many of you already know, our consciousness or subconscious can't distinguish between things that come in through our sensory experience and things that we experience deeply sensorially in our mind. And so if your visualization is really effective, and I'm going to give you a formula for how to practice this, exactly how to do it in just a few moments, you will have lived something so many times that when it comes out into what you call real time, you'll have confidence because you go, I have done this. And in the gymnastics world that I grew up in, when I was in college and the Olympics were in Los Angeles, and these guys, some of them I competed against and some were my teammates, they would in their mind's eye go through that final high bar routine. It's us against, it's going to be us in Japan at the end. And here's who's going to be up now. And we would go through, or they would go through. I wasn't in the Olympics. This is what it's going to look like. This is what it feel like. This is what my hands are going to feel like on the high bar. Like this whole thing. And what ended up happening is it played out exactly that. Our last gymnast got up, Peter Vidmar, I think it was, and he said, I'd already done this so many times that his score by a couple of tenths put us into the gold medal, and that's what happened. I want you to do that, but it's not a trick. Again, it has to be done in such a way that whatever situation you're in, it's like, I have lived this, and I'm bigger than my environment. Brent, please. So, just like we talked about. So this slide is, I got ahead of myself. Some of the data, where they've worked with visualization and piano players, study out of Harvard, I guess is a picture of that. That theoretically we could split the room and we could work on any skill, and some of you could work on it physically. And if you have just the rudimentary physical movements, some of us could do deep visualization. And when we came back out, your improvements would be really close to the same. You can get better without having a ball in your hand. Next, please. All right. Everything we just talked about. Your subconscious doesn't make a distinction. The great ones connect to that sense of who they were and what they brought to a situation in all things. Now get this, and you know this, some of you have been in finals competitions. You're either operating from a state of command and authority or from that primal state of like tension and uncertainty. And you can almost feel like your chest is open, like I'm big here, or like I'm tight and nothing is moving as openly and freely. And of course, our goal is to be open and out there. So Brent, next, please. If you can't see yourself doing something, it's like if you can grow something in a greenhouse, you got a crack at growing it in the lawn. If you can't grow it in the greenhouse, your chances out in the world, I guess there's a chance, but they go down. Brent, if we could, next slide. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you right through it right now. So there's two kinds of breath. The second one, a box breath, I'll explain to you. I'll do it afterwards. I'll just tell you what it is. But for this exercise, we're going to start with a breath, and you can do it. It's going to take 15 seconds right now. I want you to inhale for a count of 6, hold it for 2, and exhale for 7. Count to yourself. Go ahead, I'll give you 15 seconds to walk through that. And that breath does a number of things. It pulls you into present time no matter what. You can't do this exercise and be past, future, or anything. It pulls you into now. And it takes your body out of fight or flight. You could never breathe this way if a rhinoceros was charging you, or some guy with a spear. You went, oh, let me do my 627. You'd have that shallow, rapid, panicky breath. This orients you. It settles your body. It tells your brain, I'm okay. And it later gives you an anchor point for how you're going to want to compete. So we've got our breath, and we're here, and we've settled our system, and we've oxygenated it. And Brent, next slide. And then what we do is we find the key, and it's like, what would my coach say now I have to do to be great? They're not going to teach me how to bowl again or how to bat or shoot a ball, whatever sport you're with right now. But my coach says I got to stay down at the line, or my coach says I got to tuck my elbow and keep it in, or my coach says I got to watch my target, or my coach says I got to pull my attitude up, and act with confidence. And whatever your outer coach would do if you have a mentor, or if you're good enough now that you have a self-coach and you go, I know I got to do this and I'll be great. Whatever that skill is, mentally or physically, you just take a moment and you go, this is what this feels like when I do it world class. Is it my soft hands and on my release? Is it my steely attitude? What's my coach say? Just 1 or 2 things. And then you feel it, you visualize it. This is what it'll feel like when I'm like this. I feel just like this. It's awesome. And then we go to step 3. This whole exercise, when you get good at it, it's going to take you 3 minutes. All right, so next one, Brett, please. And then we're going to do this, and I'm going to describe this, and then we can do it. You're going to go back, and in your mind's eye, remember when you were amazing. So whatever you felt like, whatever you thought, whatever the situation is, here's where my heart was, this is where my spirit was. Oh, that's how I executed. I've referenced Kim before. Kim Kearney is listening, I think, after her first US Open, which is something I wish I could say, yeah, after I won my first major, like that would imply that there was more than one. But I remember, because it's one of my favorite lines I've ever had from an athlete, I just wanted to keep playing. Like, how would you like that to win? You got your money and you got your title and you got your whole thing. It's like, no, I just want to keep playing. So if I'm her, I'm remembering that moment. And if I'm, I could cite all these athletes, I guess. I want to know what it felt like. Think about Usain Bolt. If he looked back at when he set that world record in the 100, and those of you who've seen the video, he's like looking at, see what he's looking like, where is everybody? What would that feel like? You're just the fastest human of ever. Jesse Owens, 1936, Berlin, the world's rooting against him. Talk about bigger than your circumstances. And he's remembering, if I'm working with him, it would be something. What would it feel like to run your heart out right then? Well, I want you to remember, when was I amazing? Preferably in sport, I guess, but it could be any time. What did I feel like? Who was I? And you recall that, and you're like, it's in your consciousness. And then in our next phase, and I would do this with athletes, like you do this with your players, and take 30 to 60 seconds, and then you shift to, and the next time I get a chance, it'll be like this. And you create your future. I'm going to roll like this, and here's how I'll be on spares, and here's how I'll be in the first frame or the 10th frame or whatever quarter of the game. And you see it, and you live it in your body and in your emotions and in yourself, and that's your superhero self. Like, this is how I'll be. So you already know ahead of time. You're not waiting for a situation to appear. You're creating your future. I will be this, and I'll feel this. And then the last stage of it is where I'm going. And if you're a coach, maybe you're going to be coaching at the World Championships. So you're going to be like, how am I going to be with my team? Like any activity, I'll do the same exercise if I'm working with people in business. I would do this, with anybody. But we're in sports now. So biggest stage, how am I going to be? And you have two ways to approach the biggest stage, okay? There's a sports psychologist I like. Some of you may have heard of Michael Gervais. And he's got an approach that I appreciate. And he says, if you're getting ready for the Olympics, and we can have our Olympics, the show, the World Series of Bowling, whatever it is. So there's two ways you can do it. You can say, this is just my next thing, and this is how I'll be, and this is familiar, and the lanes are the same length, and the approach is the same length, and all that. Or I can say, this is different. This is a bigger stage. How am I going to prepare for this? It doesn't matter to me, Rich, really. I think it's okay to say this is a bigger stage, as long as you can see yourself, this is how I'm going to be on it. I am not bound by my circumstance, remember? I'm bound by, and you can dive under the waves, as we've talked about, and go, I'm completely here. And most of us at some time have had some sort of fear of what other people would think of us. And we can decide ahead of time, I am no longer going to have FOPO, fear of other people's opinion, or whatever that is. And we walk through that. And it just takes 30 seconds to a minute in each of those stages. And then, Brent, we go to the next one, stage 4. And then you remember your contract. I'm gritty and gutty and bold. I'm honest, courageous, sincere. I'm wide open and lay it all out. Whatever you are, this is what I am. Some people at this stage, like the guy who wrote the book on a similar process, Jason Selk, he says, you say to yourself, I'm the best spare shooter in the whole universe, or I'm the best, athlete in the building. And I don't go that way because I don't think that's as powerful. That's a comparison process. And I'm not here to say I'm better or worse than anybody. I'm here to be my best self. So I go for the contract and I say, what am I really? And feel it as part of your visualization. What am I? This can be for a job interview. This can be asking someone out on a date, and this can be one shot in the 10th. There was a moment at the Queen's a couple of years ago, and Shannon O'Keefe was playing against Brianna Cote, and then went into the 5th frame. They each had an open. They were within a couple of pins of each other. It was a really tight match. I love this moment. It's one of my, in my collection of favorite moments of sports, this is one of them. So break for commercial at the bowling stadium. Some of you were there, actually. And so it was a couple minutes. And right before we got back, Shannon looked at me and we made eye contact. And she got a little smile on her face. I have chills when I'm talking to you. And she just sort of nodded her head. And I could see her drop into contract. Like, I am this thing, whatever her words were in that moment. It was visible. Like it was, there was the start of the match, the first 5 frames, who knows what. And then there's a break and she looks up and we lock eyes. She nods and smiles. And you could see it was like her soul coming into her body. And no disrespect to Brianna, who's a fabulous athlete, fabulous player, just no question about it. But I looked at Shannon and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is over. And it's not based on skill. She has built her fire so strong. Who could compete with this right now? I guess any of you who have also a big fire, but in that moment, it was clear. She dropped into contract, and she was the thing that she is, and the match went very strongly that way for the next 5 frames, and she was the major tournament champion. This is fabulous, and you can feel when someone's in contract, and you can feel yourself, your heart opens. You don't think it, you feel it. I really am this. And as this part of the visualization, I know I'm taking a long time to describe a very short process. Can you feel your authenticity, your sincerity, your boldness, your courage? Can you feel it? It has to be part of your visualization because I want you to be able to call it up when you gotta have it. You know, whether someone threatens you in the street or whether you're in a job interview, it could be any circumstance. I want you to go, I know what I am. And then, Brent, we go to the next one. And then we just anchor it back in. We have our 6, 2, 7 breath. Go ahead and do that. 6 in, hold 2, exhale 7. Just do it right now. 15 seconds. So that when we're in the situation that we need it, you don't have to breathe for 15 seconds. You can just, one breath is your pre-shot moment, and you anchor in the whole thing. Come into present moment, you remind yourself, this is what I am. I hope you feel awesome right this second. I really appreciate you going through this. This is the deal. This is the deal. All right. Brent, next, please. You know, it's just piling stuff on you. Hey, next, it's jamming all this in. People all the time, first of all, they'll say, hey, you got to focus out there. Like, come on, focus. You concentrate. And people are like, yeah, okay, well, two things. One is most people don't make a distinction between the terms and they're different. And second, if you ask coaches, like, what, is that important? And yeah, it's important. Anybody teach it? No. It's like, oh, well, maybe we should. You know, when we used to have camera, you know, now if you want to take a picture of something, you go, oh yeah, I know how to take a picture. I just hold this up, click, you know, and there you go. But we used to have these cameras and you're like, I got to focus in. And you'd take the whole universe of things that could be possible and you'd go, no, wow, here's where I am, here's where I'm going. And concentration was just holding it for as long as you need. And that's the sniper thing. Is what some of this, you know, I've investigated sniper training, for gosh sakes, and this is what they do. It's like, oh, what's the most important thing in this moment? Can I hold this? Can I hold this? And some of these guys could be like immobile for like 30 minutes. And there's meditation, focus, concentration, mindfulness, and they're all like siblings that sleep in the same room. And we'll take a look at what those are, but there's some definitions. It's just, what's the most important thing this moment? And can I hold my concentration there? And I'm going to borrow one more thing from Carolyn. And she writes about this. And, you know, I've got this book, Bowling Psychology, and there's interviews with all these people in the book. And when she talks about some of what she did, I love this because it didn't matter where it was. She would just go, there's nothing for me out there. Like, there's nothing for me out there. Just take my ball up, do my thing. My mind's really close to the ball. Look at the ball return. Keep myself in this space. I'm here. That's where I'm going. There's my target. And her words, if I know I roll the ball well, if I just roll the ball well to my target, this is going to turn out for me. And so her world just shrunk. Like, I can stay right here, even though there's cameras out there, even though my husband's up in the booth announcing, even though, you know, I've got other players who are hoping this or that for me or against me. It doesn't matter. I'm here and I'm going there and I have these contract qualities and that's it. Like, how awesome to live like that, right? So Brent, next slide, please. So again, the old people, they go, well, you can't train speed. It's like, yes, you can train speed. Well, you can either focus. Some people are just ADHD and some people can focus. Like, no, everybody can get better at this. Everybody. And your energy goes where you put your attention. Those are the rules of life. It's like evolutionary psychology. I need to attend to this. You start developing this. And so we'll do this right now in a really sort of condensed way. So Brent, if we could. So right now, look around the room, pick any object. It can be a shoe that's sort of in the corner. If you have a bowling ball to look at, better yet, box of Kleenex on a table, it doesn't matter. And we're just going to take a few seconds, less than a minute, and just see if you can just observe it like an artist would. Like sometimes when an artist of Picasso or Van Gogh or somebody would look at something and they would see lines and angles and shapes. And if I had you draw this right now, you wouldn't have to be an artist at all. I would just have you follow lines and do certain things. And don't even name it. If you name it, let it go. And see if you can observe its texture, and its color, and its shape, its dimensions. And you just dial in and go, this is the thing that it is. And what happened just now is that for about 30 seconds, you were mindfully aware of something. I'm going to have several different ways to go at this. But it builds tremendous confidence to learn I can be in the place that I am and not interpret it, not make it good or bad. I can just be here and just go, this thing is just what it is. She's wet. That's just my ball. And you start taking judgment out of things and you become free. And I can't tell you how few people practice this and how much this will make you special as you get better at it. And I'm going to give you about 4 different ways to go at this. All right, Brent, next one. All right. Anytime you focus on your breathing, and we won't stay on this slide long, it pulls you into this moment. You can't make yourself do it, will yourself to do it without coming into this moment. And this step is necessary. It should always be part of your pre-shot, and it's part of mindfulness, and it's part of awareness. And you're about to get outside of the drama of anything, and that's the point. We're unhooking from drama. Part of mental toughness as a competitor is to say, I'm not going to get involved in this big story. And everybody telling me, oh, if you win this, you get to be in the Hall of Fame or whatever. Talking to Matt McNeil, some of you know him. And he'll be in the Hall of Fame. He's done great accomplishments at the national championships. And the discussion that we had was right before it was going to be for his next Eagle championship at the USBCs. And the awareness and people saying, oh, one more hit and you'll have, 800 and something for your series and you'll have this score and you'll be all events champion. And so there's all this drama and people saying stupid stuff. I hate to say it like that, but like, why would these aren't conversations probably to have with somebody right then, but okay. And his mental toughness to say, breathe, here's what I'm doing, stay down, come through. And to deliver and unhook from the drama of the whole thing. It was an impressive moment. And it's fun to talk to him about. If any of you have the chance to cross paths with him, have that conversation. There's something to learn. Next slide, please. So this one, you'll like this one. We're going to do this for 30 seconds. Just take one good breath and exhale. And I want to see if you can notice something. There's a point after your inhale, before you exhale, that there's a gap where inhaling has stopped, but exhaling hasn't started. It's microscopic. It's a moment in time. And there's a moment after your exhale that you're done breathing out, but the inhale hasn't started yet. And you see if you can find the gap between inhale and exhale and inhale. This is awesome. And for just 30 seconds, and later you'll do this for a minute, you're training your mind to go, I can take all of my energy and go right here. Which is what you want as a competitor. Even in practice, I'm all here. I can be in this moment. You're training focus and concentration. I love this one. Matt, next, please. So people talk about mindfulness, and it's a non-judgmental awareness of your present moment. And you're conditioning yourself to be free to operate. You're unhooking from judgment and drama. Brent, next, please. Now we're going to do something else, because there's another move here. And you want to get this as a competitor, because there's 2 ways to play this thing. One is to do the thing we talked about, which is to dial all the way in. And another is to be able to expand it. And you can look around this room, but imagine being on tour, being on TV or a tournament, or being in the Olympics, being on a soccer field, whatever it is. And instead of dialing all the way down, broadening it and go, look where I am. I work with a golfer who's out on tour, and sometimes he says, I look around and I'm in the best garden in the world. This whole thing is manicured and it's beautiful, and I'm in the middle of the lawn. And he broadens as he does this exercise. Look where I am. This is awesome. You don't judge any of it. You notice it, and hopefully as a competitor, you delight in it and go, I'm here. I get to be here. And since I'm a person who loves my craft, and I define myself, my ego attachment is to that. I'm getting better, and I'm doing the thing I love anyway. I love, if you're a bowler here, most of us are, I love to bowl. I get to bowl here. I'm in the stadium. It's a finals. I get to be here. This is wonderful. If you're attached to, I have to win, now you're going to go into some dramatic weirdness. But I get to be here, and you expand your awareness. This is awesome. I like this. You see the colors, the textures. Instead of focusing in on one place really small to here, you have the whole thing like, I'm here. And again, you can tell there's more space here. This is practice. When you go down to your the Kegel Training Center just reopened. If I got to be there right now, if any of you did, many of us haven't been able to roll a ball for months. Look where I am. And you'd just be filled with some feeling of that privilege. You get out of the drum of, I have to win this thing. If wanting to win made people win, everybody would have more medals. Nobody's short on that. Wanting to be where you are, like this golfer I told you about, look where I am, the best garden in the world. The other thing he said, I've got one of my favorite self-talk things was from this fellow. He took a shot, and it was like this clod of dirt came up, like the worst haircut you could give, on the fairway. And as I understand it anyway. And a lot of people would be like, oh, whatever negative thing could come up. And he's very skilled. He's like you guys, practiced a lot. And when I was talking to him about his next shot, this is my favorite thing. He goes, I'm good enough at this. Like, there's no way I'm going to hit 2 bad ones in a row. Like, I could never swing that bad again. And he's laughing. Like, I'm not doing that twice. And well, at the risk of repeating too many people's stories, so maybe I'll hold off on this one. Let me just wait, all right? Because we are where we are in this training. So I want you to notice where you are, appreciate where you are. For the record, gratitude and fear, anger, and anxiety, they don't live in the same place. Like gratitude on this team, fear, anger, and anxiety on the other side of the line. If you are really grateful, if you're like, this is awesome. Thank you for this body. Thank you for the power to execute this. Thank you for getting to be here. Thanks for this opportunity. Maybe you'll shoot 140, maybe you'll shoot 240. I don't know. You don't either. But you know what you bring. And if you have gratitude and it comes from your heart, for those of you who have some sense of spirituality, it's like, thank you. Wherever you do that to. So here's the opposite of what we talked about before. And that is, instead of dialing all the way down, and I'd have you notice the whole room. And to see, like, instead of the texture and contours of one small object, sort of the wonder of the whole. In a competition situation, I'll give you an example. Sometimes Jason Belmonte has talked about is taking a moment to look around and just go, where am I? Like, how awesome is the situation? Here's the stadium, or here's, and to just, again, it's a non-judgmental appreciation. Okay, broaden awareness. So focus and concentration isn't just in this small area, like on your ball or your shoe. You can look around, and and just as we could with your room, your slide will show that. To have, there's sort of two possibilities of your experience. One is, again, in the competition area, particularly like gratitude, like look where I am and look who I get to play against and look what I get to do. And if you love your craft, if you love your skill, I get to do this. Or there's fear, anxiety, nervousness, but they don't live in the same place. And for those of you who have some sense of spirituality, for instance, like, thank you for this. Like, or to your parents, or to your coach, or to yourself for putting yourself there. But gratitude intensely felt does not leave, it's a bigger fire than anxiety or fear. And when I work with like tour golfers, they'll look around, the ones I work with, and it's like, look where I am. This is my day. I get to walk here. And Brent, let me double check. Can you hear me right now?
Yep, you're good.
Oh, good. What a relief to me. Quick comment on self-talk. This one particular golfer I work with, and I really want you to, I know I'm hearkening back and it's crossing sports to some of you, but to some of you I'm not. This guy that I work with, who practices that thought, like, look where I am, and gets filled with gratitude and plays in a tournament. I don't think anyone here would be aware of who this is or where this is, but he just chunked a shot terribly, just whacked one down, gave the fairway a haircut that went flying. And anybody might have the reaction like, oh my God, now what? Or I've lost my game. And he just started laughing. And he confidently went to his next shot. And I said, how could you be so confident right now? And he said, I'm not going to hit two bad ones in a row. Like, I'm good enough and practiced enough and have played this game long enough. And we look at all the possible reactions to a situation. His was, it'd be like, if you're a good spare shooter and you miss one in a tournament, which is going to happen, and you just know, I can shoot spares. It's like, I'm not going to miss this one again. And to really know that. And if you did, which could happen, I guess, to just sort of, you'll observe what happened, what occurred that caused that, but your possible reactions are the whole world of possible reactions. So Brent, next slide, please. Everything what we just talked about. And if you have some other thoughts that come in, you don't go, oh, I'm not supposed to have this thought, even whether you're doing your mindfulness training or when you're in an actual competition situation. All of your thoughts that's not preferred, it doesn't mean it's the truth. It just came in from some old programming, and I'm going back to where I am and in my next empowered sort of action gap. Brent, next slide, please. I love this slide. Let's get familiar with this. Take your dominant hand and trace the outline of the other hand. And just like their new hands, what does it feel like on the receiving end to be traced over? What does it feel like on the giving hand to be covering these new claws, as if your hands were new? And just like Wolverine, like, these are my hands. Like, whoa, these are my hands. And that discipline of putting your mind right where you are and having wonder in your experience and having focus and having concentration, taking yourself out of the drama of anything else. Think about this. And what if you took that and you're like, this is my ball and this is the way my hand feels in this ball. This is my release. This is what it feels like. And we start getting this curious, like kids being like, this is wondrous. Look what this feels like, to be this balanced. Look what this ball feels like. These are my hands. That's how we train this. I'm going to be more curious and aware and present with my situation than I am with the drama of anything else that's happening. We're training that. Brent, next one, please. I like this. True belongings. But think about your thoughts or actions too, all right? It's a problem. So I'll adjust it a little bit. I guess this is one of those circumstances of life that we're just in it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's good now. So hopefully we'll continue as we get into this. I think this is our last major point that we got to go through. So hopefully we can get through it.
Our last major. Again, apologies for technological difficulties, but shoot, I don't know about that sort of thing. It's a physical world. So some of you have been with me through this, but we're going to take everything we've learned, and this is super teachable, and I want to take a deeper dive into one shot, although this can be expanded to a game, a tournament, to anything that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And your very first, I'm going to say your first move, your first visualized moment is you decide on any shot, here's what I'm doing. This is my ball. This is my line. If you've got the front 10 and now you're the 11th, it's like, what am I doing? And your decisions are only going to be in one of three areas, which is this is the part of the lane I'm playing, or this, I'll do this bowling examples. We could do this to any sport. Here's my field of play. This is my strategy. And again, remember, 100% committed is probably 100 times more powerful than 98% committed. I'm here. This is where I'm going to play the ball. This is my equipment. This is my strategy. I'm in. And once it's in, it's not, I wonder if this will work. You play it like it was given to you by the gods of Olympus. You made the right decision. You play it like this is the one. Like I say, Thor came down and said, here's your move. And once you have your field strategy, it's done. You might have a physical key. Some people remember when Kelly Kulick won her first U.S. Open, I think it was, and you could see her on TV going, keep your shoulder up, keep your shoulder up. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, but for her, it was a place that she just focused whatever was important for her. Like in our visualization exercise, it would have been her physical thing, like her coaching tool. And then you just have a decision about your contract. Remember your contract? Like, am I willing to be the thing I say I am? Am I bold? And am I sincere? Am I gritty? Am I gutty? Am I courageous? Is my superhero part in play? You train emotional capability by being vulnerable. I want to say that again. Brent, can you all hear me now? Is my sound okay?
Yep, you're good.
I think it really was just whatever this thing was sitting on. So
Yeah, the heat probably wasn't good for it.
yeah, well, we know that now.
Yeah.
It's a reload. True mental toughness. I really want you to hear this. I know this, we've been going for a while, but you've got to get this. The willingness to be vulnerable. If I said to you, and you can have a down jacket on and mittens and mucklucks and a hat, but no one's going to really see you. So if you mess up, or you can wear your bowling stuff, your slacks and your shirt, but you're going to be fully exposed. They'll see you. Listen, if you're going to be a champion, you have to make friends with that. And you have to make friends with the vulnerability that comes with that. And we train emotional toughness by saying, I can be vulnerable and I can handle anything. I'm wide open. I'm all in. And if you're playing the game you love, you attach your ego with the willingness to stumble, the willingness to show up, the willingness to play, the willingness to fall sometimes. Just like we've fallen sometimes in this presentation. It's like if I'm to go perfect, then I'm dead. But if I'm attached to that, we problem solve and we go at it, we're good. We are good. Confidence is an inside job. It's built by saying, I give my word, I have an intention. Confidence in business is keeping agreements. You borrow and pay back. We develop confidence in people who follow through. Next slide, please. That's what we're talking about. There's a gap where you leap. Mel Robbins, who's a speaker on motivation, says literally, just like a rock, develop the habit of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or just 3, 2, 1, go. Go. If you're working out at home and you're lifting weights and you can't do your next set of squats and you're like tired and you just go count down from 5, and on the 1, every time you go on your 1, there's some data actually start to cure anxiety by knowing you go on 1. This technique, a real technique. I count down and I go on and I jump. So when we go, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we go. And every time you keep your word, every time you're all in, whether you're solid, whether you stumble, whether you hit, whether you split, You're training yourself to act in an empowered way. Next step is the one that's almost the hardest. Go to step 3. I like this one. That sort of belongs somewhere between the two slides. He's getting a fair amount of play these days. Once you decide, you go. This next one, after the ball's off your hand, when you watch great players, they're curious. They're like watching a bird that they just took a swat at fly away. Like, what is that thing doing? The learning window is brief. And if it's more important to you to learn, to see, like, how was I? You know, was I all in or wasn't I? Did I do the thing I said I was going to do? Did I execute in the way I said I was going to execute? This third step, the ball's off my hand and I don't react at all. Remember, we've been practicing mindfulness. We've been practicing observing. We've been practicing seeing what the texture of something is. What's the roll on the ball? What's its trajectory? How's my body feel? This mindful step, if it becomes more important to you to observe what's happening than to have a result, you will unchoke. You will become psychologically, emotionally, and competitively what Tom Bilyeu says, you will become anti-fragile, unbreakable. I'm able to observe, be curious, and to learn. And then you can make adjustments off that. After the ball's off your hand, this is it. It's going to steer your next shot. Let's go to the next slide. You're human, you get to react, but not for long. Because all you did was roll a ball, for better and for worse, for greatness or for not. And if it wasn't good and you feel not so good about it, don't pay a lot of attention to that. Your feelings don't indicate that you're good, bad, terrible, never practiced or anything. They're based on your fears and your expectations. And if you feel great, take your dopamine hit. Enjoy that moment and recognize you got to unhook, because you always have to unhook. You take your 3 seconds, your 5 seconds, your 7 seconds, 10 at the most. You go, that was it. I had that moment. But your life is ahead of you. It's happening as we speak. Everything you had to learn happened in step 3 anyway. And so we go to step 4, which is a brief reaction. And then you practice, just like that golfer I told you about. What's my next shot? I'm not going to do 2 bad ones in a row. I learned. And we have an empowered step that we take. What's next, Brent? Next. And all things in nature, as I said, have to relax and reload in order to bring their maximum intention. You wouldn't lift weights and then hold on to the weights while you're resting. You'd set them down, let your arms recover, and then come back with a revitalized intention. We clear with our breath. Remember, we did that. And we unhook from the drama. When you get caught up in the drama, you choke. When you unhook from it and you say, I'm bigger than my environment, I'm going to live my contract, I know what I'm doing, you crush it. All right, Brent, moving on. This guy had to do that. He got thrown from his horse, was paralyzed, and went from playing Superman to having to put into practice everything that he'd acted out. Very iconic individual from my point of view. And we'll move to our last slides and we'll go to questions. So our next webinar, with with a little technological improvement, will be a far deeper dive into the transformation of your character. And we can move to, I'm going to, you've sort of stayed with me through some difficulties and some ons and offs, and I want to express a lot of appreciation for that, for sure. We'll take some questions, but I'll officially sort of say so long for now. just profound appreciation for you being with us. And we always welcome your feedback for how this went and the things that hit home, and and any texts or emails that come in later and say, this is what worked for me. We love to hear hero stories too, or any other ones. So any questions that come in, Brent, we're ready to field them. We'll formally say goodbye and much thank you and blessings and go forth, and we'll take what anyone has here. We'll take a few minutes.
Todd Thompson, thank you for all the great information, whether it be through sport, business, or personal. Thank you, Dr. Dean and Kegel. No problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And if there was anything that wasn't clear, I'll go back and review the presentation. I'll try to crop out the technical difficulties. So when you go back and watch the replay, hopefully you won't see some of that. And if there's points that aren't made in there and you still don't understand them, feel free to reach out to me or Dr. Dean, and we'll get you the answers. And we want to make sure you really understand this information. So if you feel like there was a point you missed because it was during some of that stuff, then just reach out to us.
Thank you, Brent. Yes. Any other questions? Anybody have anything on?
We're probably all typing them furiously now. Yeah. Sydney said, thank you for a great seminar. Thanks for coming, Sydney.
Thanks, Sydney.
Walter said, thank you for reminding who I say I am rather than who I think I am.
Sweet.
Good comment. Sam was, thank you. John Zawalik asked, what makes the highlight reel?
The highlight reel historically is any experience you had, preferably in sport if I'm training sport, but it's like, when was I empowered? When did I have joy? When did I have just the flow and the experience of exhilaration and not even having to think about it, just the knowledge and the confidence that I was doing the thing I love to do. And so what makes the highlight reel is anything historically that was that for you. And then to picture those experiences, even to create the experience as if it had already happened in the future with the next tournament or the big tournament coming up.
So Ernesto asked, can you talk about post-shot routine?
You know, my favorite part of the post-shot is step 3 of that shot cycle at the very end of the presentation, where the ball's off your hand and we have a moment of mindfulness. And I love this question a lot because so many people, I can go right down to it. Step 3, Brent, next slide. People always talk about pre-shot, and your question wisely is about post-shot. And that is, all of your learning happens right then, and your mastery over your emotional self happens right then. Like, I am more clear and present and mindful than ever. And so post-shot, ball's off my hand, I just notice, how's my balance? How's my coordination? How's the ball moving? How's it going through the pins? And your post-shot routine should be a curious, mindful observation, followed by whatever adjustments you just automatically learned to make because you were so present, you saw them. The double breathing technique is simply this: to breathe in normally and take one more inhale before you exhale. And you'll notice that your diaphragm fills, and you'll also probably notice that you've been sort of shallow breathing, which is a little bit more of that fight or flight rapid style. And the double inhale takes us into the present moment. It oxygenates our system. It reminds our brain we're fine here, and sets our body up for that centered, a little bit more calming response.
Okay. John York asked a question: in the team environment, how can your teammates assist in mastering these processes?
Oh man, what a cool question. We've not had this one before. I've worked with teams that everyone before a practice will run through the 3 minutes of our 5-step visualization process, the breath, the self-coaching, the highlight reel. They'll actually do it together. But teammates who check on each other, who are accountable to each other, like, did you do the thing? Whatever the thing is. Or teammates who will give you feedback. Some of the most common feedback that I'll give to players I'm working with on the lanes is how reactive they are, how little time they spend being mindful right after a shot. Great teammates, great teammates are willing to give you feedback from the heart, not to be hurtful, but to risk you being irked or mad or whatever it is. It's like my approval needs right now are less important than my needs to help you be great. Great teammates give each other feedback about what they observe and experience about people's physical games, their mental games, and their emotional games in ways that aren't hurtful and are not meant to flick on the head. But we're doing this together. What do we see?
A couple more comments. I don't see any. Oh, there's one question here about books, but Ken thanked you, said it was great information. He wished he had it 55 years ago. That's weird because he's only like 57, I thought.
Yeah, well, he could have used it too.
Too, I guess. Gary Parsons had made a comment too about mindfulness is essential to be learned for the possibility of greatness, should be the foundation for all learning.
Nice.
And then Todd agreed with that. Dante thanked us for the information. Kim had made a comment back when you were talking about step 3 it's difficult to eliminate the judgment from that step 3 when you're trying to be aware in that learning window.
And if I could add to Kim's comment, it's difficult and essential. And I wish I had said this earlier because I know a lot of people have left, but the question isn't, can I do this? Or even why should I do this? The question is, why must I do this? I must do this. I have to learn how to be as present after a shot as I was when I was tracing my hand, how to be as present after a shot as I was when I was non-judgmentally just observing the room. The question is, why must I do this? And the answer is so you can be free to play and the choking part can just evaporate. Step 3 is huge, as Gary wrote. This is mindful. Do I know where I am? Do I know what happened? Can I appreciate this moment? If you can do that, the part of you that would choke or cave to pressure it really will start to evaporate by itself. It'll be amazing. Why must I do this? So that I can be present, so I can experience joy, so I can experience mastery, so I can learn so much faster. And I'm going to attach my self-concept to I'm a learner, I'm curious, I'm interested, more than to that I win or lose, because I'll win and lose some different times. I don't want to be attached to that's what I am.
John Abbott had asked a question. Any books you would suggest? Would you get Bowling Psychology or Focus for Bowling? I heard the authors.
Yeah, I know the author intimately. I'm learning more about him even today. I would, if I were going to pick one of the two, I'd pick the latter one, actually, Bowling Psychology. It's updated. I think I learned a few things, and I have some interviews in there that are not in the first one. I go with Bowling Psychology. And if you're asking about those two books, if you're asking for books outside of our discipline, sort of the old standby, The Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Galway, written back in the 70s, is good. Mindset by Carol Dweck. And I do like Atomic Habits by James Clear, although it can be, it's a little bit lengthy, but between these webinars and that Bowling Psychology, you're going to cover a lot of what I've been able to find in the mental game in the last decade.
Marina Diaz thanked us for the information and really enjoyed it. Gary had another comment here, not able to be falsified, thus are not real, but maybe necessary to live alive. I am a process. I am a process of learning because I recognize.
Sweet. That's
processing a lot of that information.
That leech of seed awareness where you can get outside of yourself and look and go, check me out. Here is a whole nother perspective. Look at me. This is how I'm operating. This is how I think. This is how I feel. And it's the old sort of truism, which is that which I'm aware of, I can adjust, and that's that which I am not aware of, I cannot, I'm stuck with. And to be able to see yourself from the outside, and then you can make those adjustments in your body and in your thinking.
Right. Walter said he could have used the information 50 years ago. John York, what advice can you give to players on the dichotomy of enjoying the emotions in the environment and also separating yourself from it?
Let me think about this question for a second. Read that to me one more time, Brent. I want to process
What
that.
advice can you give to players on the dichotomy of enjoying the emotions in the environment and also separating yourself from it? I hope that's the way it works.
This would be a hard one. I wonder if we can teach this this way. You're not your thoughts and you're not your feelings. It's like you're watching them. It's that bleacher seat consciousness, like check out to be able to see, look at that. I'm having that thought. It's as the mindfulness teachers would train, I'm the sky, and these thoughts and feelings are like clouds that are coming through, you know. I'm watching them. They're like weather patterns. I have cognitive weather patterns. These are thoughts. None of them are really true or not. I can decide which ones I endorse. And I have physical weather patterns called feelings. But I'm not my feelings. I'm the one that watches them. I'm the sky. Thoughts and feelings are clouds that just roll through, and I observe them like, huh, check that out. And I can attach to some more than others if they serve me. All right? You're not, for them to look, you're having a thought. You're not your thought. And you're having a feeling. And since time's passing, we're going to let that one go too, just like an exhale. We exhaled it. It's gone. Next breath, please.
Robin said, thank you very much. Greatness is confidence in myself.
Nice.
Gary made another comment. I recognize my ignorance. Mindfulness is the foundation for the learning of the now.
So power of now.
And then Sean just asked, are you planning on writing any other books?
It's a loose yes, which is, yeah, I would like to do something that's a little bit more expansive and going to be a little bit or a lot more like the next webinar, as I said, a deeper dive into transformation. Brent, I just have your picture up there. Are we off the slides now? Is that it?
Yep. Yeah, I turned the slides off.
So I have another book to write, but this one is going to be and it will be a deeper cut at becoming the person you say you want to be in all aspects, that champion self that rises above. We've touched on it a lot today. I want to give people, just like we did, they're not hacks, they're not shortcuts, but ways to sort of take themselves on, move to another place.
Right. Sounds very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I don't see any other questions, so I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up. Like I said, if anybody has any questions, or if as they go back and review this, or something just still isn't clear, feel free to reach out to either of us. If you reach out to me, I'm going to forward it to him. You can reach out directly to him as well. But we'll be happy to follow up and answer any questions. We'll get the signups for the next one up probably sometime next week. Like I said, it'll be Saturday, June 20th. We're going to talk a lot about transformation and how we actually, so the first one, we've kind of talked about a lot of the information you need to know. This one was how can you start executing some of that? And then I think the next one, you're kind of focused on what can you do to actually make some major changes in yourself.
Building your character muscles. We could even call it that. Building your character muscles. I like that. That's kind of, I can play with it. Building your character muscles.
We probably just changed the title. So
maybe we'll
you're first.
like that. Let's change the title maybe.
Thank you guys. Thank you again for all your patience. We look forward to seeing you again. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks for everything.
Take care all. Thank you. We're signing off. Take care.